And so we've been working on some different projects. There's a exciting website project that's going on right now that hopefully we're going to be able to release here in a few months. It's something that's going to bring together, cement, and glue together a lot of like-minded organizations and conferences and experts and things like this under one umbrella. The reason I did that was because a lot of conferences just like to promote themselves. I've always been about trying to, include everybody and say, but it's very hard to get other people on the same page. So little by little, that's kind of happening, and Karen is very instrumental in helping. So her magazine is Science to Sage. Her websites are Science to Sage, and that's T-O, science2sage.com, and sciencetosagemagazine.com. And she's published, 50 or so issues of these magazines, absolutely beautiful, and it highlights a lot of these names that I just shared with you. Please help me welcome Karen Elkins.
This is going to be Man, Machine, and the Matrix, and I'm going to take you through science, yourself, and how it all comes together. So I could think of go this way. So my question as a kid, what got me to even be interested in any of this, as not somebody who's science-oriented, was it's my question as a kid. We all grow up, and it's like, what was I interested in? What was fascinating to me? And I got activated at one point, and I said, God, there's no one thing. There's no one anything. There you go. There's nothing that's one. God doesn't do anything that's one. And it's like, well, how does he do this? And I thought I'd have to go to die and go to designer heaven to sort of figure all of this out. But I didn't. When you ask the question, the door opens, and all of a sudden the answers start and begin. And when we start to look at patterns, everything in the universe is a pattern. So universes within universes and systems within systems. When we look at building the bridges across pattern weaving, people kind of think that things are not aligned or separate, but when we go through and start seeing patterns, and like this one, I love the idea of the dendrites and the tunneling and how things connect. We've had many presenters that have bridged many of the things, but when you begin to understand that there are self-similar, self-fractal things, you begin to go, wow. So all of the systems are electromagnetic, biophotonic, vibratory, thermal, as well as a semiconducting superhighways. So when you look at the way we're looking at water structures and everything, it's not that complicated. How it ranges itself is what becomes really interesting. So when I was starting to do the book and the magazines, the things that kept showing up was this, the law of triangles. This is actually from the Nemoscope, and it is like 5,000 times. I got that from Steve Roth. That, if you see the triangulation of the atoms, when you see that, these are the ions and how they distribute. They also do that in that same sort of pattern. Those are the same patterns your body, your hands, and everything goes. So science and its spirit. So instead of dividing the two, we can actually see that there's a spirit to it. And a lot of these metaphors that you're seeing on the screen are very relevant to what they were speaking to, whether it was the radiant energy. So when we look at this, there's your triangulation, there's your particles, there's, as Jerry's talking about, the radiant sun coming down and charging us, there's your pendulum swing, which is the balance. So when you look at these different religions, it's all about geometry. What one man calls God, the other calls the law of physics, and that's from Tesla. What I saw one time when a friend of mine said, you should look at origami. And when you look at the far picture over there, you can see how a field like this turns. Then you can see how it compresses. And when you actually see the compression, you begin to see how the idea of we're coming from the fold, or how those geometries begin to create life. What's really interesting, these are water pictures. This is George's water pictures. And when I saw this picture, it reminded me of the birds. So then you can see, this is water from a spa, and this is water from a well. But isn't that fascinating? You can see the geometry and how it's actually forming and structuring life. So when you look at these systems, again, the water, our planet system, old biblical text, this is the primordial soup for life. But the interesting part, when you see that, it recycles. So you look at somebody like Dale Pond's work, where you look at everything as liquid, solids to gases, and the balanced interchange between, it's not just recycling, it's a cycling system of how we come and go from the ethers, and how maybe we do never die, because matter never does die. We're just kind of on some sort of recycling system. When Jerry's talking about his fourth phase of water, what always was striking me when I keep seeing repeating patterns, this is water. So then you can begin to see how it's triangulating, as you can see before, it's not much different than graphing. You look at the layers, and you can see how the layers begin to build. So the carbon nano ribbons move like fluid on a lattice grid. So if everything's coming from those elements and they're just the building blocks of chemistry, then as Jerry says, there's a jitterbug effect that ebbs and flows from side to side. And they do have, because of that, you've got to remember there's still that dipole nature that happens in things.